Hi, everybody, and welcome to night number 6 of Robert's Haunted Pajama Party. Welcome back. I We're halfway through. I told you at the beginning of the series I did not have nearly enough pajamas for a 10-day series. I didn't think about that in advance, so so I'm in shorts tonight. So it's the outfits are changing, but the stories will remain on the haunted genre. Um, Before we get started tonight, again, I think the intro is going to be less because if you've joined us before, you kind of know the what we need to do here. But again, prayers, if you would please, for Matthew Delfino and for Stephen Kennedy. If you would please, they are still going through a very tough time, and please include them with your prayers tonight, with everybody else that you include in your prayers, if you would be so kind. Thank you very much. Um, don't forget to submit questions. I've got a long list of questions already and comments that people have been talking about, and we will go through those questions and comments and another show dedicated to that. So please feel free to comment and add your stories, and we'll talk about those and bring up some of those stories or questions that you have later on down the line. So tonight, we're going to talk about hotels and hotel hauntings. And I put the question out earlier. It's like, why does it seem like hotels are so haunted? And so I want to take you through a variety of stories that I have. I've already told you in this series a couple of hotel stories, one at a boutique hotel up in St. Augustine and another hotel. But this one, there's 3 stories tonight, so you get a bonus story this evening because they're involved and they're all things that I experienced. And they all kind of lead to different things that happen to me, both when I wasn't fully embracing my gift and also when I was embracing my gift, and the differences that I took in those hauntings. So a couple of things that I want to talk about are, and I made some points for myself so I don't miss any. The reason that are there a lot of spirits in hotels? Yes. But notice that all the things that you actually feel in hotels may not be spirit activity. There is a lot of residual activity in hotels just by the sheer nature of the amount of people that come in and out of that space. So when you've got that type of energy coming in, you could have somebody and a family in one night, you could have lovers coming in another night, you could have people having an affair on their spouses another night, then you could have following nights, a gay couple coming into the room. So all that different types of energy coming in there, arguments or love or passion, or all of these emotions all get kind of locked into a room or into a space. So understand, in your own home where you may be saging occasionally, as you should, or you're doing, or where you don't have that many people in and out, the energy there stays relatively the same, unless there are changes to the environment that you either bring in or come into that space. Either you're calling on them or calling on spirits, or a spirit comes in, whatever. But it stays relatively the same most of the time. So what I want to talk about tonight is why people feel that way and what you should do if you encounter this type of energy. So residual energy is a huge thing. So don't assume that everything that you feel in a hotel, if you're sensitive at all, is actually spirit activity. There may be a lot of residual energy in these hotels, and it can even come in the form of a spirit where you think it's an actual spirit, but it's actually kind of what you're seeing is an event. Like I can put myself in a battlefield, or I can put myself there in somebody's house and see events that happened there in 1970, and put myself into somebody's Thanksgiving dinner. I can pick up that residual energy and see what happened at that location at a particular time. So just if you're sensitive, understand that even if you're not sensitive, this type of energy can be so strong that you may perceive it that way. So just kind of understand that it may not always be spirit related. On top of that, another thing that happens in hotels, there is death in hotels. Some people do die in hotels when they're traveling. Some people have a tendency to die on birthdays. For whatever reason, there's, I don't know, like a 7 or 8% greater chance of dying on your birthday than any other time of the year. That's because of the stress, particularly on a major birthday, on a milestone birthday, on a 30 or 40 or 50 or 60. Actually, when you get older, you have less of a chance, but it's those kind of milestones in there, and actually at 21 as well, because when people drink, they can have alcohol overdose. So there can be this type of energy in a hotel room as well. But the other thing that happens in hotels that you may not think about happens in hotels, But suicide, there is a high suicide rate in hotels as well. They will not obviously advertise that fact, and there are ways to check whether or not that happened. But understand why people do that. They don't want to do it in their home. They may not want to be discovered by their family. It may be messy, and they don't want to mess up their house. So this kind of happens. It does happen a lot in hotels, and people don't realize that it actually is more frequent than you might understand or realize that it is. The other thing is it could be attached to the land that was there at one time, because sometimes particularly these old hotels or some of the castles that I've stayed at in Europe or things, do have really kind of tough energy sometimes associated with them. And finally, one of the stories I'm going to tell you about, I think the first story I'm going to tell you about, is a staff attachment, and where somebody who may have worked at that location, it was a wonderful job. This is where they felt comfortable. They dedicated their life to this place. And this was a great time for them. So sometimes these souls, if they don't want to leave or they're earthbound, will kind of make their way back to that location. So kind of understand that those are some of the reasons why you may be experiencing some of the energy in this way at those locations. So story one tonight is an interesting one. So we're going to talk about New Orleans. And I lived in New Orleans for many years. And being a medium in New Orleans is an interesting experience, as it is in many older cities, Washington, D.C., or Chicago, or New York, or some of these cities hold a lot of energy in them. But New Orleans was interesting for a variety of ways. There's just been so many cultures and so many things that have happened through their history, from piracy to all kinds of things, yellow fever epidemics that killed off thousands, or just so many events that happened in the city that makes that energy there interesting. And the other thing is, obviously, because New Orleans is below sea level, everyone's buried in above ground. So with that being the case, you do see a lot of interesting cemeteries and things. So if you haven't been to New Orleans, that's a plug for New Orleans. I love it there. But there's some interesting energy if you're a medium or sensitive in any way to spirit there. So I lived there for many years. My husband, Mark, had never been. And so I decided to take Mark to New Orleans to kind of show him around for, I think it was an extended weekend, maybe 3-4 days in New Orleans. And so I decided he'd never been to the Vieux Carré, and the Vieux Carré is the French Quarter in New Orleans. And there's so much energy downtown there. And this is, you can look it up. I won't get the names of the hotels and things, but the hotel was one of the only hotels right downtown. It was a very large hotel. And Mark and I got there, and again, I experienced, and I'd lived in New Orleans for a long time, and this was Mark's first journey there. So, kind of walked around the French Quarter a little bit and got to the hotel, put our stuff away, went back out. And we were going to go to a place. I will plug one place, Commander's Palace, best turtle soup in the world. I love Commander's Palace. And so I was going to take Mark out, but you had to dress to go. So we went to the hotel room, I think we had dinner reservations for like 7 o'clock or something. And so went to the hotel and to get dressed, because you have to wear a jacket. And so I put on a suit, and my shoes weren't particularly up to snuff, I say. So one of the things I had to do was find one of those machines that could shine shoes. And we were on the first floor. There was a kind of not a basement, but a kind of an underfloor to where we were. It was kind of like a halfway up, and there was kind of this floor that was down below a little bit. And so being on that first floor, right around the corner from the room we were on, we're like 2 doors down from a stairwell. And the concierge told me if I went down the stairwell and walked out the door, just around the corner from the stairs was this little closet area, probably the size, it must have been maybe, I'd say 4 foot long, 4 foot wide, and maybe 8 foot tall. And the only thing that was in there was the shoe shine machine that you had put quarters in to have these two things spin at the bottom. And all you did was you put your foot underneath it and, kind of spun around, and it put a little polish on it, and it shined up your shoes very nicely. So I go downstairs, Mark's all dressed, I'm dressed, I'm in my suit, I just want to go polish my shoes a little bit. I walk down the stairs, I get into this little closet area, put in I don't know, 50 cents or 75 cents, whatever it was. And again, it's just this little area, and it was right next to an open door that was there. And I started to shine my right foot. As I'm shining, shining the shoe there, I kind of looked down the hallway. And if you can imagine, if you ever saw the movie The Shining, it was one of these long, long, long hallways. And I can't even tell you how long it was, but the place, the hotel sits on a city block, so you can imagine it's just a long hallway that goes down most of the city block. And so I'm shining the shoe, and I kind of, as I tilted my head out as I'm shining my right foot, I look down the hallway, and at the end of the hallway, I see a waiter. He's got a green jacket on. He's holding a tray. I don't remember what was on the tray because I was more focused. He was wearing this green jacket and green pants with gold kind of trim on it, and epaulets on the shoulders that were gold as well. I could see him way in the distance, and hey, great, so I continued to shine my shoe, and something hit me strange about, I don't know why, but again, just the energy, right? Something was right. And then I noticed it was just very, very, very quiet. It was in a large hotel, you'd think there'd be people coming and going. It's dinner time. You think people are coming in and out of rooms. Nothing. You could hear a pin drop. It was the strangest feeling in the world. And so I just kind of leaned out the door again to look down. And now this waiter, still there, still holding it, walking toward where I was. And I'm looking down, and I noticed everything was fine, except there was no face. It was just this dark nothing, I wouldn't say a hole, but there was just nothing. There's no definition to a face at all. And now I am absolutely petrified. This is, again, I don't like being surprised by spirit, and this is one of those instances where I got surprised. And so I'm just seeing this ghost coming at me, and my first feeling was, oh God, what do I do? I didn't know what to do. I was petrified. I'm thinking what to do, and I wasn't quite sure. I didn't know. I really didn't know. So I kind of got into flight mode, and I don't know why. It wasn't bothering me. It wasn't trying to do anything, but I was just petrified. So I just darted out. I just left it. Just darted, out of the corner and opened the door to the stairwell. Ran up and as I started to run up the stairs, I knew that when I opened the door up at the top of the stairs, this ghost was going to be standing right there, and I just knew it. And I'm going. I don't know if you ever tried to run upstairs with your eyes closed. Grab the rail, and I'm kind of just running and trying to get up to the top of the stairs. It was one of those stairs I had to run up and up the other side. I ran up the first half and up the second half with my eyes closed, felt for the door handle, kept my eyes closed, and flung the door open, and I refused to open my eyes. I knew what I was going to see, and I refused actually to open my eyes. I told you yesterday's show that when I'm petrified, I always slept with the covers over my head, and I didn't want to see when it was scary. So I opened the door, I kept my eyes closed, and I knew that we were the second door down, so I kind of felt along the wall, and I'm moving very quickly, and I'm feeling along the wall. I kind of felt the first indentation for the door. I felt the second indentation, and I'm pounding on the door for Mark to let me into the hotel. I'm pounding and pounding and pounding. And then finally Mark opened the door, and I jumped into the room, opened my eyes, and he's like, what is wrong? And I'm huffing and puffing because I just ran up, and I told him the story of what happened. And and I don't know if he believed me at the time or not, but I'm telling him this story, telling him what's going on and what I saw and felt. And I didn't know what to do with what I just saw. And so I decided to go down to the concierge before we left for dinner. And I just went down to the front desk and said, hey, by the way, is your hotel haunted by any stretch of the imagination? And the concierge said, why? What did you see? And I proceeded to tell him what I saw. No, sir. People say that it's haunted, but, we don't tout that. We don't say that's haunted. And I've never seen anything here. And I've never heard anything here. We go to dinner. We leave. We come back to the hotel. And that was the first time that I actually looked up the hotel and found out that people have seen numerous type of apparitions in this hotel over the years. And one of the ones that I saw was one of the ones that people had seen apparently through the years. So lucky me. But this too was a ghost of an employee who obviously worked there because of his uniform and stuff. Um, I wish I did now. I wish I would have gone and asked how I could help, maybe help cross him or do something with with the spirit, this energy. But it was just one of those things I was just not comfortable doing at the time. And he did nothing threatening. Just know this: the spirit did nothing to me. Did nothing threatening. Said nothing. Did nothing. Just walking down the hall doing his thing. And but how maybe chose to let me see him, which was very nice. So I do think about that all the time and wonder, I would love to go back to New Orleans and see if I could do something and help. I do sense the energy every now and again, but I've never felt him. He's never come to my house. Didn't thankfully have an attachment. He didn't come with me. So, if you go to New Orleans and you go to a hotel and you see this guy, if you're a medium, let you know in advance, see if you can help them. One of those things that maybe I'll do when I get back to New Orleans after the pandemic. So that's story number one. And again, we'll get into all the reasons why and what to do if you encounter something like this. The first thing I tell you is don't panic, which is exactly what I did. Try and keep calm. There was no reason for me to panic. It was just my reaction. And we all have, fight or flight mode, and I got into flight mode very quickly with this one. Anyway, that's the first story about a hotel where I had an experience. The second one that I want to talk about was actually in Atlanta. And I lived in Atlanta for many years as well, doing a job there for an international salesman job. And but this happened many years later. I actually had to fly to New Orleans for a job as well. And I went to go stay in a hotel that's very, very well known downtown. And I won't, again, say the name of the hotel, but if you know where the old Fox Theater is downtown, it's next to the Fox Theater. And the hotel held the premiere for Gone with the Wind. And I happened to be there the weekend of the 75th anniversary of Gone with the Wind. So they had, women out in hoop skirts out front, and, they kind of made it this recreation. We're showing a new showing of Gone with the Wind that weekend that I was there and that sort of thing. So it was a wonderful event and stuff, going up just outside the window of the hotel. And I was on the 7th floor or 8th floor, I think, of the hotel. And so I stood, and it was one of these beautiful hotel room, but it had kind of a kitchenette, like a full kitchen, large refrigerator, freezer, and place to cook and all this kind of stuff in it. And so it was very, very nice. So I went there, and in my room, I started to get ready for bed one night, and I was asleep and was woken up choking, coughing, hacking. And I didn't know why, but all of a sudden there's pounding on the door, and they rushed us out, me and a couple of other rooms, because somebody had left the stove on in an adjacent room and was flooding my room with smoke, and the hallway with smoke and stuff. So I wound up actually spending the night in the emergency room for smoke inhalation. Lovely first night in Atlanta, right? So I was in the hospital overnight. I was exhausted. I was tired, but because my room smelled so much of smoke, the hotel said, "Look, you've been through a lot. You were spending that whole night, the whole night in the emergency room. Let us make this right by you. Let us give you a suite for the rest of your stay," which was another 3 days in Atlanta. I said, "Well, that's lovely. Thank you very much." So they gave me a penthouse suite in this hotel, and the hotel room was one of these 2-bedroom, 2-bath, living room, dining room, seating area, couches everywhere. It must have been, I don't know, 1,200 square feet. I don't know what it was, but it was an immense, one of the largest hotel rooms I've ever been in. It was the nicest thing that they could possibly do. They couldn't have been nicer about it. The problem was, when I got into this hotel room, again, the room was so much money a night that it was very rarely used. But so I went into this room and felt the energy right away walking down the hallway, knew that there was energy in this hall that I wasn't particularly fond of, and walked into the room. And walking in the room, they had, the bellhop was bringing all my luggage up and putting it in the room, and told me to have a nice day. And I'm now standing there going, I'd rather have the smoke-filled room back, because the energy in this room was not great. And I went into the master bedroom, what would be it was a little bit larger than the other bedroom in this suite, and I did not like the energy at all. It was just so bad that I decided to go into the smaller room, that uh, and I put all my luggage there and got settled in and stuff, and I just was not comfortable at all. Had dinner set up, and so had dinner. It was a very nice dinner. And after that, things started to go a little crazy in the room. We started to get to the point where lights started to flicker. The TV was going on and off by itself. Um, I was getting very uncomfortable, so I wouldn't even stay out in the main living area of the suite. I actually kind of retreated to the second bedroom that had the bath attached to it and closed the door because I just didn't like the energy in the rest of this place. So I'm watching TV in the room. I'm up. I'm kind of watching TV late. It must be 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. And that's when it started. I started hearing noise outside in the adjacent rooms. There was no way I was going out there. It just wasn't going to happen. And so I decided to go to bed and put earplugs in. And I'm laying there and I'm going to sleep. And I'm asleep. It must be maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 in the morning. Woken up by a loud bang and felt the presence. The room was pitch dark. Felt the presence of somebody, something in the room with me, and then saw the apparition of a young man who was probably in his mid 30s or so, young 30s, and there was something about his energy. So he passed somewhere in the 50s, 60s, this energy, and he liked my energy because I was younger at the time, and I think he felt an affinity for me in some way, and he really showed himself and wanted to kind of be seen and talk. He wound up dying in a tragic way, and he just kind of let me know that he just wanted to talk. And I, again, didn't want to. I asked him if I could help him, and he said no. He was very, very comfortable with where he was. And again, I'm not going to pressure him if he doesn't want to go any place. That's not my job, is to throw him over. My job is to kind of help him if I can. And he said that he was comfortable where he was, and he liked being in this space because it was very rarely used and utilized as a space, and he had the place to himself most of the time. So we just kind of had a little conversation that said, look, you can have that back bedroom, the main bedroom, and that bathroom. I promise I will close the door. I will not bother you the rest of my stay. I will not enter those rooms. I won't do anything. But I'm here. I need to have this space for myself. And so I claimed the space. This is mine. I need to be here. I don't really want to interact with you. I need my sleep. I can't be woken up at night. I have business to do. It was, if you need me, I'm here. If you want to talk, if you need my help in some way, I'll be happy to talk with you. But if not, I just need to be left alone. Okay. And so we had this agreement, and he basically kept to that agreement the whole time, which was very, very nice of him. Always felt his presence in the room while I was there. But we just kept our distance from each other. He had his space. I had my space, which was plenty of space. And that was kind of, I left. And when I was leaving, kind of opened the doors to those bedrooms, thanked him very much, wished him well. And he knows how to get hold of me if he ever needs to. He's my energy. I've got his. And if he ever needs my help in the future, he knows how to reach out. But he's one of those spirits who was just comfortable in his space. And quite frankly, he will eventually move over. He was kind of watching over some family members that are on this plane. But this was his go-to place, and this is where he'd like to hang out. So he was a good soul, but not somebody that I wanted to encounter, at 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm trying to get some sleep. And finally tonight, so there's two stories. And the third one has a Mark connection. Mark, do you remember the story with the cabin?
I do.
So we decided to go up to Georgia, to a small town called Helen. So I don't know if you've ever been to Helen, Georgia. It's a small little village, but it's kind of got this German theme, up in Helen. It's a cute little town, and they have great Wiener Schnitzel and all kinds of pastries and things and good beer. So it's a kind of a fun little place to go and do some tubing or things of this nature in the mountains there in Georgia. And so we decided to get a cabin deep in the woods, and we took the dog with us. Got the big Jeep and drove up to Georgia to have this lovely 4 or 5 days up in the mountains, and it was back in the woods. When I say a cabin in the woods, there was one road that I think three houses shared. The first house was right off the interstate. This other house was about halfway back, and it had this house way back to the back in the woods, and it wasn't close to anything. But the cabin was beautiful, and it had, kind of a jacuzzi outside, and it was all wood inside and very nice furnishings. It was just cute, but it was one of these. It was kind of a smaller cabin, but it was almost like an A-frame, where the top floor was just one giant bedroom, and there was a balcony there that you kind of see down into the living room and the fireplace and everything that was downstairs. So in this particular cabin, we get there the first night, and I already sensed when we got there that there was going to be somebody sharing this cabin with us. And he was an older gentleman, but cranky and cantankerous, and didn't really. This was his cabin. Didn't want to share it. Doesn't want other people there. His place, his area. So that was the energy walking into this place. And with Mark, most of the time, I don't like to tell him that that I'm encountering spirit or something, because I don't want to scare him, or let him know that that there's something there, because it may make him feel uncomfortable. At least I can see and hear and sense what it is. He'll just kind of be blindsided by it, so I don't tell him about it most of the time. We got inside there, and the dog's running around, and she's trying to figure out the place, and she couldn't go up the steep staircase at night when we went to bed. I had to pick her up and carry her upstairs because she couldn't have made it up there on her own. So the first night there, Mark goes upstairs, and I went down, and there was a little bedroom off to the side of the front door when he walked in. And there was a little bedroom there that had, I think it was 4 bunk beds, one like over the top. They were both against the far wall when he went in. So there was two beds on one part of the wall, and the other part of the wall, 2 other bunk beds there. And yeah, I guess for hunting or whatever they wanted to use this particular house for, that was kind of a lodge feel to it, like a hunting cabin feel to it. And I encountered that spirit there. And he was not happy, for a variety of reasons, but we'll stick to the main ones. Was that, again, this was his cabin. He didn't want to share, wanted us out, knew I could understand and hear him with this. So he was just kind of a little put out by people coming into his home, and didn't like it at all. So what we wound up doing was, I just told him, look, I paid money for this. I'm claiming this space. You stay here. I won't bother you. I promise, we'll just leave this door closed, and you can have this space, and we'll just live on the upstairs and deal with it. Unbeknownst to me, let's just say Mark has some quirks about him, and one is to be nosy on occasion. Are you nosy, Mark?
Oh, yeah.
So Mark, couldn't just leave this door closed. Mark had to go in and inspect this room for whatever crazy reason he had to go into this room for. So he was going into this room. So day one wasn't a problem, because I went down and had the conversation, went to bed, and everything was great. Day two, Mark's going in the room, and, we were taking the dog out for walks, and Mark has the cabin to himself for a while, and he's doing all this kind of stuff while I'm out. So night number 2, we're laying in bed, and the dog's upstairs with us, and all of a sudden we're kind of almost asleep, and you start hearing footsteps all the way up the stairs. Click, 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 slowly, methodically. You could hear it getting closer and closer, and the dog, and let me tell you, Kai always would sense things in this house and kind of alert me to spirits in the house while she was here. Again, she passed about a year ago. But when she was here, she always would kind of sense this stuff beforehand and kind of bark at it. And she scurried over to the bed and started to whimper. And then she'd never done that before. And again, she felt the energy, this negative presence that was coming up the stairs. And all you heard was this footstep, one after another. And there must have been, I would say, 20 stairs going up. There was a very steep set of stairs going up to the upstairs. And when this got to what sounded like, because we were hearing every step up, getting closer and closer and closer, and petrified again. Mark and I were both laying there listening to this, and what we heard, what was like getting to a top stair, and it stopped. And there's nothing. We didn't see anything. Nothing else happened. And Mark looked over at me and said, "Did you hear that?" I said, "Of course." We're both just sitting there, just waiting for the inevitable, not knowing what was going to happen. And then it was over. We both looked at each other for the first time and had words. And both of us were just scared of what happened. And I didn't tell him what I sensed or feel. He said, "Did you hear that?" I did. And I said, "This must be haunted." I go, "Well, but maybe." And so I didn't tell him anything else about what I sensed before. Night number 2 gets there, and the same kind of issue. Well, unfortunately, the bathroom was downstairs, and I had to go down to all those stairs to get to the bathroom. I knew what was there. I didn't want to deal with this guy, and so I kind of woke Mark up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I said, "Hey, are you sleeping okay? You doing okay?" Because I wanted him awake, because I didn't want to go down there with him asleep. So he's awake, and I'm kind of yelling to him from downstairs, "Hey, can you hear me?" Blah blah blah. I don't know why I was doing that. I just wanted to make sure there was a connection, life in the house. Went to the bathroom, got back, came back upstairs, laid down, and that night, for whatever reason, Kai wanted to sleep in the luggage. She felt kind of comfortable sleeping in the luggage. And all of a sudden, she made a beeline out of that luggage, came flying over to the bed, and she'd never slept with Mark and I in our lives, and got as close physically to me as she possibly could, and just shaking. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything, but felt it that night. And it was just heavy and oppressive. And he knew I could feel it and was trying to scare me out of this house. But again, I do this for a living. I'm not scared easily from the standpoint where he's going to remove me. May not like it, but he's not going to knock me out of the house. And finally, the third night, I was asking him, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this?" And he was just very silent. So night number 3 was relatively calm and peaceful. We're driving down the driveway on the way out of this place on day 4, about noon. And I looked over at Mark. I said, "By the way, you do know the place was haunted, right?" He goes, "Yes, I know. I remember the footsteps and stuff." And I said, "Well, I had him stay downstairs in the room, but he wouldn't listen to me. I told him we weren't going to go down there and bother him. And that's what he told me. Oh, I've been going in and out of that room every day." So my wanting to strangle Mark aside, I just kind of told him that, and he was like, "Well, just tell me in future." And I told him why I didn't tell him. But I made a promise to him from that day on that if I'm feeling and sensing spirit, that I would let him know every time after that. So those are kind of 3 stories that happened, in relative, not too long of a time since we know each other, the last decade or so, in hotels. There's so many more things in Portugal, which we may get to, and Spain, which we may get to, and other places where we've had encounters. But these were 3 that I wanted to bring up tonight, because they had some differences in them as to why they were there, why they were in spirit and took residence in these hotels. So one, if you feel anything in a room, again, try and discern whether or not it may be residual or if it is a spirit. Don't do what I did and panic immediately. I mean, I admit I did panic. And I get that you can, and it's easy to do because it's a natural response. But if you are connected, see if there's some way that you can help that spirit. And if you feel threatened in any way, by all means, that's not a time to try and help. Okay, you need to make sure that you take care of yourself and take care of your soul and take care of your body while you're on this plane. And you don't need to be threatened when you go someplace. Go downstairs, ask for another room, leave the hotel. It's not worth putting up with that type of fear for. It really is not. So my suggestions would be, if you can, if it feels like a relatively benign presence, like the one in the hotel in New Orleans was, it was benign. I could have just talked to the spirit, found out what he wanted, or if he was comfortable there, or if I could help him cross in some way, because there was nothing threatening about that spirit energy whatsoever. And I missed an opportunity, and that's something that I regret. because I had that chance and I missed it. So, if it's benign, see if there's something to do. If you feel it's positive energy, try and connect with it. Again, but protect yourself if you feel that kind of energy in the room, particularly if you feel something negative or you're not comfortable. Do what we talked about in the first part of the series with protection. Put that, that surround yourself with God's white light. Picture you in that space. Maybe say some prayers, get reverent. If you bring sage with you, like I always have sage with me, do some saging. But when you do that, please remember to open a window, get that negative energy someplace to go. I'm trying to think. If you sense danger, obviously get out of that space. I don't want anybody in a space where you're just feeling that type of danger at all. But also do what I did. You can claim your space. You're paying good money to stay there. And you claim it and tell. And again, the first thing I think I've told you a couple times now, things that you should do, and one of them would be, if you're not in God's light, you cannot communicate with me. Be one of the first things that I would do if you started to encounter something that you were uncomfortable with. But understand that hotels are going to hold this type of energy. If you're sensitive, even if you're not sensitive, you may encounter things in hotels that can be chilling from time to time or disconcerting. So do what you can for yourself. Try to find, a balance. If you are gifted in some way, if you are connected to spirit, that you might be able to try and help. If you can't help or feel uncomfortable doing so, get yourself out of the situation, change rooms or change hotels. Just do what you need to do if you're not comfortable working with that at that particular time. So there's so many things that we could talk about as to why they're there, but I think most of these hotel stories are very specific to the presence and entities that are there. So I wanted to keep it relatively general as to the land or somebody who may have been there for whatever reasons and why they may be haunting that space, or why you may feel energy there. But if you have any specific questions, please feel free to address them in the comment section. Again, we'll be talking about this at the end of the series, and happy to address them. And if you have any specifics that you maybe want me to tap into, we may be happy to do that as well for you, and see if we can figure out what you were encountering and why they were trying to communicate with you in particular, to maybe get a message across. Okay. So that's about it for tonight's show. I hope you enjoyed the stories, and I look forward to seeing you again here on the Enlightened World Network. Enchanted? It is Enchanted because Terry Angel's behind the scene here, working the camera. But the Enlightened World Network, Enlightened Living. There we go. It's hard for me to get out at 10:30 at night. But I thank you all for watching. And tomorrow night, I'm going to keep it a little bit of a surprise. So watch for my teaser during the day. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow here on Robert's Haunted Pajama Party. Have a great night, everyone. Good night.